Hello everyone, this is teacher Henrik and I'm here today to talk to you about the English verb. Now this seems to be something that's very tricky and complex for some people, and I believe this is so because we usually learn the English verb system as individual verb forms. So when you start studying English, someone is going to teach you about the simple present tense, then they move on to the simple past. Then you talk about the present continuous, the past continuous, you talk about the future, and all of that. So you end up with lots of bits and pieces of information instead of understanding the rationale of the English verb system. Now, if you do understand what is behind the English verb system, things might be much easier for you. So shall we have a look at that? Now, the very first thing that you should notice is that when I talked about the English verb system, I talked about verb forms, not about verb tenses. And this is so because when we're talking about English verbs, we're actually talking about a combination of two different things. We're talking about a combination of tense and aspect. And in this regard, tense is whatever verb that can be inflected. So when you have an inflection of the verb, that's your tense. In English, we've got two different tenses only. We've got the past and the present. And then you're going to tell me, but teacher, hold on a second, what about the future? Well, we do, of course, express the idea of the future, but you don't really have an inflection of the verb to represent the future. So we tend to make use of an auxiliary verb or any other verb form that's available. So I'm going to put it here in tense just to make it easier. So what we have here is the future in English because we can clearly represent the idea of the future in English. And we do so by using either the modal verb will or the periphrastic modal be going to, or the simple present or the present continuous. So there are four different ways for us to represent the future forms in English. And when we're talking about tense, this is something that's very interesting because in terms of tense, what we have is the idea in relation to the time that something is happening. So if you're talking about the past, it's something that happened before now. When you're talking about the present, something that's happening at this moment, right? In the present time. And future, something that will happen. Now these three tenses, that is the idea, the concept behind them. That is something that's very easy for you to understand. The problem lies in understanding a bit more about the different aspects. And we've got four different aspects in English. So there is the simple aspect, there is the continuous or progressive aspect, there is the perfect aspect, and there is the perfect continuous aspect. Now, when we look at this, we clearly see that there are 12 verb forms in English. So what do we have here? The past simple, the past continuous, the past perfect, and the past perfect continuous. Present simple, present continuous, present perfect continuous. And finally, we do have the future. Future simple, future continuous, future perfect, and future perfect continuous. Now, when we talked about it, if we understood that tense, your tense, is what positions yourself in relation to time, aspect is going to talk about your action within that time frame. So what is the idea of the simple in the present form, or simple when you're talking about the past? Right? So what does a past simple mean in comparison to a past continuous? So how exactly do you know that difference? And of course, when we're learning grammar in English, there are three things we should consider, right?